Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes in the midst of our deepest pain and disappointment, we fail to see the greater plan that God has for us. Heartbreak, sorrow, and the breaking of our spirits are not things that God inflicts upon us to destroy us. They are the necessary processes through which He shapes us into who we were always meant to be. We must first understand this powerful truth, the purpose of pain. Pain is often viewed as something negative, something to be avoided at all costs. However, when we take a closer look at how God works in our lives, we come to realize that pain is not always a form of punishment, but rather a tool for redirection and protection. In fact, God sometimes allows pain into our lives to shield us from future harm, to guide. Imagine driving down a road and suddenly encountering a sign warning of a sharp turn ahead. The sign itself may cause you some discomfort or unease, but its purpose is clear. It's guiding you to slow down and adjust your direction. Similarly, pain can be that warning sign in our lives, urging us to change course before we reach a point of no return. Sometimes we are so caught up in our desires or in unhealthy relationships that we cannot see the danger looming on the horizon. It is in these moments that pain becomes God's way of getting our attention, gently nudging us away from situations that could harm us, even when we don't yet understand why. Pain is often the result of us resisting God's guidance, and yet, rather than abandoning us to our poor decisions, He uses it to realign us with His purpose. We may feel anger, frustration, or even confusion when we experience pain, but this is a sign of God's grace. The pain we endure is not a punishment. It is a loving correction, an invitation to shift our focus and our steps towards something greater. It's a chance to grow, to learn, and to realize that there is a better path waiting for us if we choose to follow His direction. Moreover, pain can act as a safeguard, preventing us from entering into relationships, opportunities, or situations that appear promising but are ultimately not aligned with God's will. At times, we may not understand why we face certain heartaches, but as time passes, we may see how God was protecting us all along. The disappointment we feel in the present moment often pales in comparison to the protection we receive when we look back and see the ways God has spared us from harm. In this way, pain becomes not a burden but a blessing, a redirection to keep us in alignment with God's perfect plan. Heartbreak is often seen as one of the most painful experiences a person can endure. Yet, in the hands of God, it becomes more than just a source of sorrow. It becomes a tool for divine intervention. When our hearts are broken, God is not merely allowing us to suffer, but He is actively at work repositioning us, breaking us free from unhealthy situations, and shaping us into the individuals we were always meant to become. Love gives us purpose, anger, integrity, dreams, regardless of circumstances. Humanly sacrificing ourselves for another without self-indulgence and waiting to be blessed. In those moments of deep emotional pain, God is moving behind the scenes, orchestrating a transformation that we may not fully understand in the present, but will eventually recognize as His divine plan unfolding. When we are in unhealthy relationships, environments, or situations, it's easy to become comfortable in our discomfort. We may convince ourselves that what we have is enough, or that we cannot do better. However, God sees the bigger picture. He knows that these circumstances are not conducive to the future He has for us. Through heartbreak, He removes the blinders from our eyes, forcing us to see what we've been too afraid or unwilling to confront. See, this heartbreak is often the catalyst that forces us to face the truth, no matter how difficult it may be. It's as though God is saying, "This is not where I want you to be, and this is not who I created you to be." As God intervenes through heartbreak, He is breaking the chains that have kept us bound to the past. Whether it's a toxic relationship, a dead-end job, or a mindset that holds us back, The pain of heartbreak serves as a way for God to clear the clutter and make room for something greater. He is liberating us from situations that limit our growth, preventing us from becoming who He intends us to be. Like, in essence, the pain we feel in our hearts is the very force that sets us free, breaking us from the chains of unhealthy attachments and redirecting us toward a life of purpose and fulfillment. Moreover, divine intervention through heartbreak is not simply about removing us from negative situations. It is also about reshaping us into stronger, more resilient individuals. God uses the pain of heartbreak to refine our character, build our faith, and develop qualities within us that can only be cultivated through adversity. He is not just fixing the external circumstances, but is also working within us, molding us to become the people who can handle the blessings He is preparing for us. Through divine intervention, heartbreak becomes a transformative force that leads us into a new season of growth, freedom, and alignment with God's will. Pain has a unique way of bringing us to a place of surrender, a place where we can no longer rely on our own strength or understanding. It's in moments of heartache, when everything feels out of our control, that we are given the opportunity to truly surrender our will to God's plan. This is not a surrender born out of weakness, but a surrender rooted in trust and faith. It is in the midst of our deepest struggles that we are called to let go of our own desires, plans, and expectations, and place them in the hands of the One who knows us better than we know ourselves. When we face heartbreak, we often feel as though we are losing everything. Our sense of control is stripped away, and the world we once knew is shattered. It is in these very moments of brokenness that God is teaching us a powerful lesson: trust. We are being invited to release our grip on the things we have held on to so tightly, and to trust that God has something better for us, even if we cannot see it in the present. This lesson in surrender is not about giving up, but about choosing to trust that God's plan is greater than anything we could ever imagine for ourselves. The heartache we experience often exposes the limits of our own ability to control our circumstances. We are reminded that we are not in charge and that the future is ultimately in God's hands. It is during these times that we must make the conscious choice to surrender. Surrender our fears, our hurts, our ambitions, and our understanding of what should be. When we let go of our will and align ourselves with God's, we create space for His perfect plan to unfold in our lives. Surrendering during times of pain is also an act of deepening our relationship with God. It is easy to trust God when everything is going well, but it is in moments of heartache that our trust is truly tested. As we release our will to Him, we learn to rely on His wisdom, His timing, and His love. The act of surrendering in these moments builds a deeper intimacy with God as we move beyond surface-level faith and learn to lean into His sovereignty. In the act of cursing, it is through these painful moments of surrender that we discover a new level of trust in God. The more we surrender, the more we understand that His ways are always higher than our own, and that He is always working for our good, even when we cannot yet see the outcome. In the end, surrendering to God's plan during our heartache brings us closer to the person He has destined us to be, and teaches us to trust Him more fully. When God allows our hearts to break, it is not because He wants to see us suffer, but because He is providing us with an opportunity for profound spiritual growth. Heartbreak is not a detour from the path of life. It is often the very tool that refines us and shapes us into the individuals God has destined us to be. The pain we experience in these moments is not just emotional. It is a spiritual forge where our character is tested and developed. Through these trials, God is strengthening us, making us wiser, and preparing us for the greater purpose that lies ahead. We may never understand the full depth of this process in the midst of our suffering, but God uses these painful experiences to build the character we need for the future. It is in the darkest seasons of life, when our hearts are broken, that we often experience the deepest growth. The challenges we face test our patience, our faith, and our ability to trust in God's sovereignty. And through each test, we become stronger. We learn that we can endure, that we can stand firm, and that we can trust God, even when the road ahead seems uncertain. Moreover, heartbreak teaches us wisdom. We gain insight into our own hearts, our motivations, and the things that truly matter. In the midst of pain, we often come face to face with our weaknesses and vulnerabilities, and this self-awareness is a vital part of spiritual maturity. We begin to understand ourselves more deeply, and in turn, we learn to understand others with greater empathy and compassion. The lessons we learn during times of heartbreak are not just for the moment. They are building blocks for our future, equipping us to handle greater challenges and responsibilities with grace and strength. God also uses heartbreak to prepare us for the future. When He breaks our hearts, He is often clearing the way for something better. He is removing what is not aligned with His will so that we can receive the blessings He has in store for us. Through this painful process, we are not only being shaped into stronger individuals, but we are also being prepared to handle the gifts and responsibilities that God will eventually entrust to us. The pain we endure now equips us with the resilience, wisdom, and faith needed to thrive in the future. In this way, heartbreak is not just a source of pain, it is a tool of spiritual development. It shapes us, refines us, and prepares us for the greater things God has for us. As we endure through these challenging times, we emerge stronger, wiser, and more equipped for the future, with a character that has been molded in the fire of trial and trust. Sometimes God removes people or situations from our lives not to hurt us, but to help us. When heartbreak strikes, it often signifies that something in our life is no longer in alignment with the purpose God has for us. This removal, though painful at the time, is God's way of creating space for something better, something more, in tune with His divine plan for our future. Patience reminds me that there's a massive swell of life inside each one of us. Sometimes it takes an entire future to recognize the past so effortlessly from the present. We may not always understand it in the moment, but God's wisdom far exceeds our own, and He knows exactly what we need long before we are even aware of it. When we are deeply attached to certain people, relationships, or situations, it can be incredibly difficult to let go. We may hold on to them out of fear, comfort, or because we've invested so much emotionally. Yet God's plan is not confined to our limited perspective. He sees beyond our present circumstances, beyond the attachments that seem so necessary to us. And He knows what will truly benefit us in the long run. If we allow ourselves to trust His process, we will begin to see that His decisions to remove certain things from our lives are always for our greater good. God's ability to remove what no longer serves our purpose is a reflection of His deep love and care for us. He understands the importance of surrounding us with people, situations, and opportunities that align with His calling for our lives. There are times when we cannot grow or move forward because we are holding on to things that weigh us down. These attachments may be toxic relationships, unhealthy environments, or even old mindsets that limit our potential. While we may resist or struggle with these changes, God knows that in order for us to fully step into our future, we must release the old. By removing what is not aligned with His purpose, God is clearing the path for new relationships, new opportunities, and new growth. The people and situations He removes are often replaced with what will bring us closer to the destiny He has prepared for us. These changes are not acts of abandonment, but acts of divine care. God, in His infinite wisdom, understands that what is best for us may not always be what we want in the moment. Yet, in trusting Him, we open ourselves to the new blessings, growth, and opportunities that are waiting for us just beyond the horizon. The pain of releasing the old makes way for the joy of receiving the new, God's perfect will for our lives. And as we surrender to His plan, we begin to recognize that the removal of certain things was never a loss, but a gain in disguise. A step closer to becoming who He has truly called us to be. The breaking of the heart is often perceived as the end of something, an end to a relationship, a season, or a dream. However, in the divine perspective, it is not the conclusion, but the beginning of a new journey, a journey towards healing and restoration. Though heartache can feel overwhelming, it is important to understand that God does not allow us to endure pain without purpose. The process of brokenness is the first step toward emotional, spiritual, and relational healing. It is in this brokenness that God begins His transformative work, bringing restoration in ways we could never anticipate. Healing, like all growth, takes time, and it often comes in stages. Initially, we may feel the weight of our pain and struggle with the emotions that come with it. Yet, in God's wisdom, He uses this very pain to draw us closer to Him, to teach us the deep truths of trust, surrender, and resilience. It is in the moments of brokenness that we are given the opportunity to lean fully on God's strength and embrace His love in a way we may never have before. We come to realize that while we are broken, we are never abandoned. God, the ultimate healer, is with us through every step of our journey, and He is intimately involved in our process of restoration. The emotional healing that follows heartbreak is a profound process of self-discovery and spiritual growth. As we face the rawness of our emotions, we begin to release the pain and confusion that come with loss. This release is not easy, and it often requires us to confront difficult truths about ourselves and our past. Yet, as we allow ourselves to grieve and process, we make space for healing. It is in this space that God works, gently mending our hearts, restoring our peace, and rebuilding our hope. Spiritually, brokenness can be a catalyst for a deeper connection with God. When we are at our lowest, we often seek God with more urgency, and this hunger for His presence can lead to profound spiritual growth. We become more aware of His sustaining grace and are reminded of His promises to restore all that has been lost. Through the pain, God teaches us how to rely on His love and faithfulness rather than on our own understanding or strength. In this way, our hearts are not only healed but also transformed as we learn to trust God on a deeper level. Finally, relational healing begins to take place as we move forward from our brokenness. God uses our experiences of heartache to refine our relationships with others, teaching us the importance of forgiveness, compassion, and healthy boundaries. We begin to understand the depth of love and grace that we have received from God, and in turn, we are able to extend that same grace to others. Many of our conflicting dealings with others, the relationships that follow, are not defined by the scars of the past, but by the strength and wisdom that healing has brought. The breaking of the heart is not the end of our story. It is the beginning of a journey of profound transformation, a journey of healing, restoration, and the discovery of God's faithful love and grace. Through this process, we are not only restored, but we are made stronger, wiser, and more aligned with the divine purpose God has for our lives. So, my friend, understand this: the breaking of your heart is not a sign of defeat. It is a sign of divine intervention. It is God in His infinite wisdom preparing you for something greater, shaping you into the person He has called you to be. Every wound, every scar, every tear you shed is part of the process of your transformation. You are not left to endure this journey alone. God is with you, guiding you, healing you, and restoring you. As you surrender to His will, trust in His timing, and embrace His purpose, know that the best is yet to come. Your heart may have been broken, but it is being made whole again for a greater destiny. Stay strong, stay faithful, and keep moving forward. Your restoration is near.